Hello, everyone. It's Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo for Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous, and I've got a special show for you today. I have one of the producers from Cloud Imperium Games, Darian Vorlick, here. And Darian, how are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. And I got to meet you in person when I was out there, and it was like one of the heights of one of the highlights of my visit out there because you spent what seemed like forever talking to me, but I know it was probably about 15 minutes.
I mean, you had actually some pretty interesting questions, and not a lot of people ask those questions that you asked about production. And one of the answers that you, or one of the questions that you asked me, you were kind of surprised by that answer because it was the same answer that Lance gave you. So it was a very memorable conversation.
Okay, and we're going to get to that because that's one of the reasons we're here. And you said a couple things in that conversation that made me laugh and think, and it made me realize how important your role is, but also how you said the statement that you did and how Lance said the statement that he did, how that contrasts what I now know that you do. All right. All right. So we're going to start off this and we're going to get people to that because I thought it was pretty cool.
Sure.
And the first question that I usually ask people that are here for the first time is, tell me a little bit, if you could look back. You grew up in that computer era. So what was the first gaming type computer that you had in your house?
It was an Intellivision or an Atari 2600. I got them both at the same time for Christmas, and my mom used to play Tron Deadly Discs with my younger brother and I. I have one younger brother. And my mom actually used to kick our butts at it, too. That was the scary part. So that was like 1981, 82, I think it was.
Yeah,
80, 83.
Maybe now 80, 81, 82, 81. Yeah. And television, I had one in them.
Yep. That weird phone button controller with that weird disc and the side buttons.
Right.
Some of my greatest memories were playing that. And then around 1983, because I go to Japan a lot to visit family, my cousin had a Famicom and playing Super Mario Brothers. So I'd never seen any gaming console like that in my life before. So when we got back to the U.S., it's like, is there anything like that in the U.S.? My grandma contacted Nintendo of Japan, and it turns out Nintendo was releasing the console in the U.S. So we procured one, and it was pretty much all over from there.
Okay, so you're a big Nintendo fan. You are Japanese American, right?
Yeah, my mom's Japanese.
Okay.
My dad is pretty much everything under the sun. My last name, Vorlick, is Czechoslovakian. But I think I've got Russian, some Sioux Indian. I think there may be some Amish somewhere back there.
You're an American then. You're a mutt.
I'm a mutt.
Yeah.
I'm a mutt.
Yeah, in the words of, I guess that was Bill Murray from Stripes, we're the mutts of the world.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, that's great. So you have a similar story to a lot of people. So you had those consoles as your first. Is that what pretty much you stuck with the rest of your life, consoles?
Actually, no. Around 1984, my dad brought home our first IBM PC. And while he did it mainly, he ran a construction technology business. It was his own company. So the computer was largely just for his work purposes. But we went to a computer fair, and back when they had 5¼ inch discs, and you have by that one disc got like 18 games on it. He brought one of those home, and I think Jumpman was on there, and then that pretty much skyrocketed my PC gaming. From there, we got a game called Demon's Forge, which was this weird first-person, like 2-3 color adventure game where you had to escape from this dungeon. And then came King's Quest 1.
Oh.
I missed the ability to type in the commands because it actually made you think about what you had to do rather than clicking on the screen to find when the icon changed. You actually had to type open the door or get this. And so Sierra Online's games were the catalyst for me really to get into hardcore PC gaming. While I always had a console, like I graduated from Nintendo to the Super Nintendo to the Sega Genesis, I've had every console since. My brother and I, we both started off as biology majors in college, and we both end up getting into the video game industry. Now, he's the console guy, I'm the PC guy. He works over at Sony, where he's a technical project manager, basically internally facing producer. He was at Sega for about 10 years, so he went on during the PC route. I kind of he went to the console route. I didn't join the gaming industry till way later, but I've always been a PC guy.
Okay. I could say that I've always been a PC girl, so I've pretty much had similar Except we started with the Atari. Well, we started with the Magnavox Odyssey, Atari 2600, Television, ColecoVision. You know, we went up. We went up the march, and then we got a Commodore 64, and that was the end of it for me because that's the one that was in Magnum PI, where I forget the guy's name. He used it for a security computer in his home. The guy that he lived on the estate with. So what was the first game that you can say that you had a true and we use the word addiction light here. We're not really about addicted gamers. We're about people that have a love of gaming. So what was that first game that you played that you thought you were only playing for a few minutes, but actually it was like a long time?
So I actually said this one in my interview at Cloud Imperium when I was interviewing with Alex Mayberry.
Okay.
There's one game that is near and dear to my heart, and it's Ultima 5.
Okay.
I still play it.
Okay.
I've been through the game I don't know how many times, and up until that point, I was never really into role-playing games. I didn't really know what they were. I remember seeing my cousin playing Dragon Quest in Japan, and it was a lot of Japanese text. At the time, I couldn't read it, so I had no idea what it was saying. I asked my cousin, what kind of game is this? I don't see anything, flying across the screen. You're not attacking anything. And the best way he knew how to explain it with limited vocabulary was it's a lot like homework because there's a lot of reading. So had no interest in it at the time. And it wasn't until, I want to say, I picked up a copy of Ultima 3. And I just remember kind of thinking, okay, this reminds me of Lord of the Rings and things like that. So that's when I started really getting into the fantasy genre. But I didn't really get fully immersed into it until I started playing Ultima 5. And something about the storyline behind that game, while every character, even the NPCs had like a night and day cycle that they walked through, and it felt like this living, breathing world. I mean, you're talking about 1988, 87, I think it was. I had a 286 computer. Actually, no, it wasn't even that. It was an 8088 something AT
no,
or XT.
It was probably a 286 at that point.
It was whatever came right before 286. I bought a 286 to upgrade to play Ultima 6 so I could have a sound card in it.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So Ultima 5 was my first foray into PC gaming. But the one that really, truly turned me on to hardcore PC gaming was Wing Commander 1.
Okay, so we share that.
Yeah, seeing that opening cinematic, hearing that epic musical score of the Kilrathi theme song, and the way I still remember the origin, the conductor at the very beginning who does the little thing that says Origin FX.
Yeah.
That brings back so many happy childhood memories of my friends and I playing games together on our PC.
And for those of you that are looking for that, and you can go back to the first video that's in my channel, which is from Wing Commander to Star Citizen, and you'll see that. We have that same vision because anything Richard Garriott put out, I just fawned over because I loved the way the text was. Because back then it wasn't about action; it was reading what was going on the screen. And I was a big, deep into the Bard's Tale, and then when Ultima came out,
oh god, yeah,
just hours upon hours. Now that they have the Bard's Tale on the iPad, I sit there and play with it every now and then and go, it's just like it was like 30 years ago or 40.
I remember they had the Bard's Tale construction set.
Yeah.
Which was basically build your own Bard's Tale game using all the spells. And my brother and I would spend months building these Bard's Tale games and levels and just adventures, let our friends play through them. So yeah, that was definitely one of the ones as well. But I'm going to have to say Wing Commander and Ultima. Again, both Origin games. Origin was, they were the Blizzard of the 80s and 90s.
Oh,
so
God,
they were great games back then.
Until the evil empire took them over. I guess we can't say who that is here on my show since we support all game companies equally.
They do put out some good games.
They do. Some. A few. No. So you got yourself into gaming. How did you get yourself into the game industry? Like, you wound up wanting to go and be a doctor or a biology major? I mean, what was going on in your head in those years?
My great-grandfather on my Japanese side was a medical doctor in Japan. And he was actually part of the research team that found the cure for yellow fever.
Oh, wow.
The actual disease. And he wanted his son to be a doctor. And this is right after World War I. My grandfather, he saw how often his father was away from the house doing research. And so he's like, I'm not going to be a doctor. So he was kind of the rebellious one. So it was always had hope that my brother and I would grow up to become doctors. And it was a lot of pressure from my father. Is like, oh, I want sons for doctors, and I want sons for doctors, and they're going to be doctors. And to be honest, I grew up in a household where my mom's idea of a fun weekend game was she would read off a list of different countries from National Geographic, and I'd have to go find them on a map and pin them to a map. So I had a very, very science-oriented childhood.
Okay.
So pursuing biology and biomedical engineering was a very natural progression of that. I love the sciences, but after 5 years of pre-med, I realized it wasn't my true passion. I enjoyed it, but I couldn't see myself going to med school for another 4 to 8 years and then doing an internship. And then, because I wanted to be a surgeon or a medical forensic examiner for the FBI, something involved with surgical processes, which is why I paint Warhammer minis, because my hand's really steady for that. But because I decided not to go to med school, I kind of got into the magazine publishing. So at the karate school that I teach at, one of the parents was one of the first Top Fuel drag racers. So he helped build up the drag racing industry. And he wanted to get into the whole import market with the whole, the Honda Civics, Acura Integras back in the 90s where the Rice Rockets were fixing up their cars. So since I speak Japanese, he had me as the ad sales rep, and I would basically travel the globe working for this magazine, putting out advertisements, and that was kind of my introduction to the professional world.
Okay.
The magazine went under. Ended up working for an ad agency. That ended up progressing into working for Cat Fancy and Dog Fancy magazine. And to be honest, working for Cat Fancy and Dog Fancy, everybody can laugh, it was actually one of my bucket list jobs. I've always had animals. I've always had cats, always had dogs. I used to grab Cat Fancy and Dog Fancy magazines when I was at the pet store. So when the opportunity came up to work for the company, I was like, oh God, yes, I would love to do that. So it was a lot of fun. I was there from 2001 to 2006, I think it is.
Wow.
That's
5 years of fun for you.
Yeah, it was. And, I was making a very nice, healthy 6-digit salary as one of the advertising managers. And at the time, I had a lot of friends from Blizzard, and I knew that the position that I was in at Fancy Publications had plateaued out, that I wasn't going anywhere from that point. So I had a girlfriend at the time who I've known her for like 30 years, and we were really good friends before we dated. We dated for 8 years. She actually ended up becoming one of my sales reps at Cat Fancy. And at that time, Blizzard was looking to hire managers or individuals to help start up their customer support department.
Oh, awesome.
So they asked me, and I had just been manager, making a very healthy salary. I just couldn't take the cut. So she ended up going over there, and she actually helped start up Blizzard's customer support. It's only ironic that a year later, I was working 6 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., driving to downtown LA. It was incredibly stressful. I was getting ulcers. I could barely sleep at night sometimes from the stress. So after a year of that, I basically went to Blizzard starting off in tech support. And the ironic part, like my cousin from Japan, he majored in 3D modeling. And he was at a small indie studio in New York. My brother was at Sega. My distant cousins, or one of my cousins was an 3D artist at Sega. So I was the last one to get into the family business, apparently, which is my generation's family business now, because we're a lot of video gamers.
Right.
And my parents, and my aunt, uncle, and my other parents, like, you can't play video games for the rest of your life. Well, after my brother kind of paved the way for doing that at Sega, they realized, okay, yeah, I guess you can make a living doing it. So I was at Blizzard for just shy of 8 years, where I started off in customer support, became one of the trainers to help onboarding new customer support reps, went over to training for the QA team, where I would train game testers on how to use our software tools, how to write bugs, things like that. And that led to working on basically live ops for Diablo 3 on the QA side, where Jeremy Masker was actually the producer that I worked with. I don't want to say work under, because we were in different departments, but I worked with Masker a lot. And I've known Jeremy for I don't know how many years. I don't know Alex for how many years. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's impressive. So you just took me with one question all the way into Blizzard, which is amazing. Because that's where my question started when you said that you work for Blizzard. Mm-hmm. So what was your time like at Blizzard?
It was very much like a family. I do miss a lot of the people that I worked with, and there's something to be said for working for a rather large gaming company where, I guess, how do you say, we don't have to worry about budget.
Yeah, not when you're getting $15 a month from 10 million people.
Yeah, there were definitely some glory days at that company, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not that way anymore, but they were glory days.
They're getting back up there. Hearthstone has made them a very pretty penny.
Awesome game, yeah.
It is, and they're awesome people. The guys and girls who are working on Hearthstone are some of my favorite people at Blizzard.
Okay.
So, working there, put it this way, I gave up a 6-digit salary to start off at $12 an hour.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Well, that was what I made at Blizzard when I first started.
Okay. And $12 an hour, and you were making 6 digits at Cat Fancy.
Yes.
Holy moly.
So,
yeah, sometimes passion does win out over money.
My worst day at Blizzard was infinitely better than my best day at Cat Fancy and Dog Fancy.
And what was your worst day like? If you had to say it. I'm calling you out.
There's a famous one.
Okay.
We had a department called QC, Quality Control. And what they would do is whenever you call a call center, you hear this call may be recorded for training purposes. They're the ones who do those recordings. And we had a customer call in, and I was doing phone calls at the time, and a guy called in and complained that his character name was changed, and his actual name was Todd Baggins. And he had different characters' names, like T. Baggins, Todd Bag, things like that. And older gentlemen, too. I mean, you can tell the guy sounded like he was, late 60s or something like that. And he had no idea why his character's name were changed. And I thought at first, all right, you're just trying to troll me. But after talking with the guy, it turns out he had no idea why. And I didn't know that phone call was being recorded. I had to explain in a very indirect way what that name meant. And when I looked up, I had 6 other reps looking over my cubicle going, what the heck are you saying? So it turns out that was recorded.
So we were talking about teabag, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that phone call was recorded. Later on, about a year or two later, when I actually transferred over to QC department as one of the trainers, one of the guys was like, hey, you got to hear this phone call. This is a famous one. This guy explained to this one guy why his name was changed. And they start playing it. And everybody just kind of looks at me like that was my phone call. So it haunted me for a while at Blizzard.
Okay, that's a bad day.
In retrospect,
it's a funny day.
Funny.
It's a funny day, but it's a bad day when you're at the center of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I definitely got talked to that day.
So you worked in QA then? And then you worked as a producer there. And what?
No, not at Blizzard. Okay. I was not a producer at Blizzard.
You worked in Wait, what? Okay, so let's go back. What were the positions that you held at Blizzard?
Started off with tech support.
Okay.
Then customer support trainer.
Okay.
Then went over to the QA team as a QA trainer.
Okay.
And then joined the QA team for D3 Live Ops.
All right.
So Live Ops is a side that kind of oversees the ongoing live action of live section of the game, rather than working on whatever's coming down the pipeline. For example, if there's a new expansion coming or new items, we're the team that actually focuses on what's going on in the game now. So if there are balance changes that need to be made, if players are exploiting a mechanic in the game, we're the ones who have to go and investigate that. And we work closely with the Live Ops development team, which was at the time Jeremy Masker.
Okay. All right. So your time at Blizzard, you would say, would have to be a good part of your life, right? There was
Absolutely.
There was no real reason for you to leave there, right?
Production was always my end goal.
Okay.
And there was no reason for leaving Blizzard that were financial or social or political or any. There was no negative reason why I left.
Right. We had this conversation, so just so people know, I was at CIG interviewing with Sandy for a position, and I was freaking out because I just got told what the position was. And here comes Darian, who I know worked at Blizzard, and I throw this question at him. And I'm going to throw the question to him now, so people know. And the question that I threw you, if you remember, was, Blizzard's such a company they're set. They're not going anywhere. They're coming into a new era. They have a new game coming out with, I forget what the name of it is, but it's a new
Overwatch.
Overwatch. They have what you just mentioned, Hearthstone. They have World of Warcraft, which really, even if they get down to 5 million, it's not going anywhere. And Diablo 3 and StarCraft. So you have this set in stone. You have a job with a wonderful company that treats the employees like gold, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you give it up to work for Chris Roberts, which I have to tell you, when I go there, I would quit my job, and I work for probably the #1 company in the world right now, correct? And I would give it up because of the passion that you see there, but you gave it up for your own reasons. So I know that Alex was a good buddy of yours. So take us through that move and tell me what you did, if you can remember how you told me that day. That was pretty interesting.
So I remember when Alex left. He left Blizzard, where he was a lead producer on Diablo 3. Lead or senior, or I think it was lead or production director.
Right.
And I just remember him posting that he was leaving on Facebook to go to Star Citizen. And at the time, I had heard of it, but I never really knew much about the game. I just remember hearing something about a crowdsourced game, and I just thought, oh, another one of those. And it wasn't until I actually read up on the game, and I still hadn't seen who was behind it. So reading up, I'm like, oh, that sounds really kind of cool. And then I saw Chris Roberts' name associated with it. Like, I thought he was out of the gaming industry, and it turns out, this was his return to the industry. And I asked Alex about it, and he explained what his reasons were, why he left, and he was looking for a challenge. I mean, after being at Blizzard for 10 years, it's really hard to be impressed by something or challenged by something. So when I saw the game, and I knew Chris Roberts, his legacy from Wing Commander and his involvement on the Ultima series, I had to jump. I had to go. And being inundated with fantasy genres all day long, while cool, I've always been a sci-fi person at heart. And seeing that it was a project of passion for Chris, I wanted to be at the ground level of something that had potential to be huge. And I had talked to Alex, asked him, like, hey, are there any production positions that you're looking for? And it took a couple months of talking to him about what he was looking for. He called me out to Santa Monica. We had lunch, and he told me that they were looking for a new production coordinator on the team. So I asked him, like, all right, what kind of responsibilities is this person going to do, and what do you need? And he said, well, we're going to be wearing a lot of hats. So even though the title is production coordinator, you're going to be doing a lot of tasks that are just kind of all over the board, from associate producer to producer, tackling and owning a lot of projects. So it was a fairly intense onboarding process. But going back to while I was at Blizzard, the head of the department was a really good friend of mine. And I pulled him aside. I said, look, I got an offer from Cloud Imperium, and I'm only telling you this because I respect you as my boss and as a friend. I don't want this to blindside you, but here's the reasons why. There's an opportunity to get into something big. It was a project of passion, and that was something that I wanted to be a part of. That's one of the downsides of being in a company that's so big, is that it's not that you feel like a number, because I never felt like a number at Blizzard, but it was a better chance of being able to make a difference on something that I really wanted to be a part of. So I hope that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense to me.
Is that close to what I said before?
It is. And it was one of the things that made me think hard about actually if I got an offer moving from Atlanta to there. Because it's similar to the company I work with. You get to a certain point, and you're working for a company, at the time Blizzard, that has amazing talent working with them. So you're an amazing person amongst many amazing people, and it's tough to get your self noticed, to be that shining star amongst a lot of people like yourself. And that was one of the things that you were saying to me. And this gave you an opportunity to start off in an environment where you had more options.
Yes.
And that was good. I like the way that you said that.
Well, I'm not getting any younger. And
There you are.
yes,
Younger than me.
Age.
You're younger than me.
My mom, with her at least cultural mentality, she's very, very traditional Japanese in that she believes in working for a company, keeping your head down, doing your 9 to 5 like a good loyal employee, and that will get you through life. She worked for the same company for 30 some odd years before she finally had the ability to retire. And her idea was, as long as she kept doing her work, paid the bills, then that's a good job. My brother and I were very competitive individuals. Not that we had to prove ourselves to be the best, but we know we were both taught that we knew we were capable of doing greater things. And I don't say that to be, narcissistic or, self-inflating. It's like I said, I'm a very competitive person. I don't like losing. I like getting ahead. I like competing. I like challenges. And this looked like a very, very nice challenge to want to take on. And it is. It's incredibly challenging. It's a very difficult project to be on because, well, there's a lot of stuff to do. And I've loved every minute of it.
Okay. So you left to take on, what's the position that you hold now? What's the name of it?
Officially production coordinator.
Okay.
So basically junior producer.
You're a junior producer, and Alex is the lead producer?
Executive producer.
Executive producer. And Travis?
Yep. Producer.
Producer.
So
Okay.
in most gaming companies, the hierarchy starts from the top of executive producer, lead producer, senior producer, producer, associate producer, like production assistant or production coordinator or junior producer, somewhere around that point.
Yeah, I just want people to know the amazing people that you're actually working with, too. You're working with Alex Mayberry from Diablo 3. Travis, who's been around for quite a while, too.
Yeah, he's a second-generation producer, I think.
Yeah.
I think his dad was in the gaming industry for a long time. So the guy knows his stuff.
And you have new people that just came on with the same title. Isn't there a new girl that's there now?
Yep, Lisa O'Hanian. She's our new production coordinator. She's actually taking on the art and ship development side over at LA.
And
so, it lets me focus purely on Arena Commander.
Awesome. So you're the one I get to call and complain to.
Depends on what you're complaining about.
Just kidding. I'm not complaining about anything. Don't worry. Stay on the call. No, but I just want people to get the hierarchy. So what's your everyday like there? Like, I got to see a day when people were running around trying to get the monthly report done for January when I was there in early February. So what's your everyday like?
Like that.
Yeah, just like I saw you in. Finally breathing at 6:30 in the afternoon when I got to talk to you.
Travis is the one he goes to all the meetings. Like, there's some days I don't see Travis until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon because he's just in meetings all day long. I have a tablet computer that's for the department where I basically go from desk to desk to desk, asking where people are on their tasks, when is this going to get done by, and then reporting that to the production team saying, we're still looking for the work, that we've got this bug that's a blocker, so we can't deploy the patch just yet. So it's a constant getting information, reporting it, getting feedback from the rest of the team, or from production and management, relaying it to the team. It's pretty much just the information hub.
Okay.
So, and I guess, yeah, that about sums it up. You're pretty much just the catalyst to make a lot of it happen.
Awesome. So now you're going into the answer to the question I asked you, and Lance. So what's Lance's title there?
Art director.
Art director. Okay. And you're a production coordinator or producer. And I asked you both the same question. You both gave me the same answer. I said, what do you do for Cloud Imperium Games? And what did you say?
Nothing.
Nothing. And there was
nothing.
And there was an analogy that you made to me, and that analogy was pretty cool. What was that analogy?
There's a quote that I heard from Alex, and it's one that he actually uses a lot, that if you have a game studio full of producers and nothing but producers, nothing will get done.
Yeah.
Because they're always just trying to basically plan how to get something done, and they'll constantly just plan.
Awesome. Now you have a role where you have to keep people on track. So it's kind of like a
Yes.
foreman almost, but you do it in a different way because you're dealing with creatives, right?
Yes.
So creatives aren't the people that you want to go over and light a fire under and scream at and make work. And I could tell from your personality, at least with me, that that doesn't seem like it's part of what you do.
You have to put on a lot of hats in how you deal with certain people, that's for sure. For example, I wouldn't approach a programmer or an engineer the same way I would an artist. And I say this jokingly that, you can go to an artist and tell them, like, hey, that drawing, it's not that great. And the guy doesn't show up for 2 weeks because he's so upset over it now. I wouldn't do that with an artist because each of those different teams, they respond to different types of communication. An engineer or a designer, they're looking to see what makes the game fun. They want to design bigger and better quests, something that tells a story. While the artists, they're making it to look pretty. They want it to look cool. They want it to look flashy. So they're going to respond to different stimuli in the way you approach them. But the reason why Lance and I said that we really don't do anything, because we're not the ones making the game. I can't go and tell a designer, you should design something like this. Or I can't tell an artist, say, you know what, I don't like the way that ship looks. Maybe you should change where the cockpit is or make this fin a little bit longer.
No, that's what I do when I walk in there.
Well, it's because I didn't go to art school.
Yeah.
I didn't go to, I wasn't a computer science major in college. So it's not really my place to tell them how to design the game. And, excuse me. While at some companies, a producer may rule with an iron fist, I've noticed that in a lot of Western gaming studios, that's just not necessarily the case, where the producer is just more of the person who just helps speed things along. So we're the ones who make sure that the artist isn't drawing the same piece over and over and over again because he's never going to be happy with it. And let's face it, an artist is always going to find room to improve on a piece of art asset. So at one point, the producer is going to have to step in and put their foot down and say, all right, enough's enough. It looks good. Let's get into the game.
Okay. So you're the person that's like producing Arena Commander right now.
Correct.
But isn't it true that some of the people that you actually have to interact with each day and keep on track also have other people doing the same thing because they're working on multiple projects or crisscrossed responsibilities? Like you might be having, to keep them on track with Arena Commander, but the producer of the PU might have interaction with them too. Is that the case there?
A little bit of everything. For
Okay.
example, we have an animator or an artist in Austin who's working on the Constellation, and that's
Okay.
Josh Coombs.
Yeah.
He's working on, I want to say, the exterior of the Constellation. We're kind of remodeling it, but he's also working on the helmets for the FPS.
Oh.
So not only does he have me talking to him about where his art tasks are, he's got the producer for the FPS talking to him from Elphonic. And a lot of these assets are going to be used in the Persistent universe. So we may be dealing with some of the UK guys, some of the Austin guys. Excuse me. So there's a lot of cross-pollination between different departments. And on a lot of levels, that's actually really good because it helps create consistency. We're not having to reinvent the wheel every time we need to make something new. I mean, if we weren't talking to each other, and let's say our guys in LA or in Santa Monica made the interior of a ship with certain types of beds that animate, and the UK wanted to use a very similar functionality, why do they need to rebuild it from scratch again when they already have something that we already created for it? It gives a very consistent look to the universe, and it saves a lot of time and money.
It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Now,
Oh, yeah.
You're also working on a part of the game that is a game within the game itself. So how does that, where does that place you? And this is a hard question for me to ask because I don't want to lead you into an answer. But where does that leave you when the game actually goes to being the actual Star Citizen in Squadron 42 and Arena Commander falls away a little bit? What next?
Arena Commander serves multiple purposes.
Okay.
It not only lets our backers and subscribers kind of play around in the game as it's being developed, it also serves as a functional test bed to introduce new technology, new ideas, new mechanics. So we're always going to have a need for that. I don't think we're going to be as big as Blizzard. I don't know if Chris wants it to be ever that big of a company, but I do know he wants the longevity of Star Citizen to go well beyond a decade and so forth. So we're always going to have a need for having our technologies tested in a massive environment. We do have a QA force, but you can never simulate thousands of players playing simultaneously and see what kind of load that puts on the servers, on what it does to the code, what it does to a spaceship. So having our players being able to test it ahead of time gives us a lot of important data.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I don't see it going away.
Yeah.
I mean, plus, on top of it, we may start creating, like PvP tournaments, and where else to do that in Arena Commander, where players don't have a risk of losing their ship or
their avatar.
Or that too.
Because Chris has this whole mechanic of you die, you're dead, and your legacy lives on.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense. I like that. I wanted to bring you there because people ask me that all the time. It's like, once a game goes live, Arena Commander is useless, but you're pointing to a different direction. Like, if you're the producer of Arena Commander, you know that there will be esports, whether it be racing or squadron battle or FPS when that gets in there, which, although it's its own type of Arena Commander with Star Marine, I guess it's all built into one piece, and you're part of all of that? That's a question.
I have little to do with the FPS side.
Okay.
That's all being done. That's why Travis is out in Ilphonic to make sure he is getting that integrated correctly into Arena Commander.
Okay.
So I primarily deal with the spaceship side of Arena Commander, whether it's racing or getting new items implemented. For example, we're working on a torpedo for the Gladiator. So
that's the kind of stuff that I focus on. Torpedo?
What's that?
Are we going to have something to torpedo before 2.0?
I believe so.
We are?
Other ships? Oh, are you talking about like large ships to shoot it with?
Yeah, because torpedoes aren't really that good for small ships.
That remains to be seen.
All right.
The idea behind the torpedo was, we want it to be like a hull breaker or line breaker or a hole puncher, where you shoot at a capital class ship and it just punctures a big old hole in it. So it's supposed to be very high yield, very shoot straightforward kind of. It's not a smart missile. It's very, very dumb fire. So, but the Gladiator spec said that it came with torpedoes. So we're trying to since we never really defined what a torpedo is. I mean, in real world applications, torpedoes pretty much fired underwater, but we're not in water.
Just go back and play Wing Commander. They had torpedoes.
But how do you classify the difference between a torpedo and a missile?
High yield, bigger, slower moving. Remember the missions you had to fly to shoot down the torpedoes?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but this is an opportunity for you guys to reinvent that. You don't have to go back and do what Wing Commander did because Chris was part of that, right? So is that what you're trying to do?
Not necessarily. Our designer, Calix, he's the one who came up with what the torpedo is supposed to function like. And I think it maybe end up just being called a torpedo and named like a torpedo weapon.
That was Starlancer. Sorry. I'm thinking the mission that I'm thinking about was in Starlancer. Sorry.
That one I never played.
Yeah.
So, but, there are certain terms that we have to take certain creative license with what a torpedo is.
Okay.
And I do a lot of reading on like astrophysics, and so when the art team needs to come up with like how does a neutron gun work, or what would a neutron gun actually fire? Lance comes over, tapping, and goes, hey, we need some science geekiness over here. Can you come help us? So it's fun being able to, it's fun being able to help out in that capacity as well.
Well, that's good. So what could you tell us, because Arena Commander has so many things built into it now. You have all the ships, you have a couple of really good modes that aren't played as often as I wish to see them played, like Capture the Core and Squadron Battle. It seems like most of the fun is going on in Battle Royale and co-op Manual Swarm. You have a new mode coming out. What could you tell us about the new mode, which is based on pirates?
Pirate Swarm.
Okay.
So we have a new designer, Randy Vasquez, and basically what Pirate Swarm is supposed to be is a lot like Vandal Swarm, where instead of fighting, waves of Vandal sides, you're going to be fighting waves of UEE spaceships. So the ships that you actually pilot. So you may have a wave of Mustangs, or a wave of Hornets, or a wave of Aurora. So basically they're supposed to be ships that have been stolen by pirates. So you're going to be basically fighting against player character spaceships.
Okay.
So hopefully it would give a different challenge for people who want to try to test their mettle against ships that are similarly geared like theirs.
And will it be as well thought out and balanced as Vanduul Swarm, with actually elites that you have stories of and stuff?
I hope so.
Okay.
Right now, we're just trying to get the technology down for it.
Okay.
So Randy, like he's the one who's been working on it. He's been working on it for about a month now.
Okay.
But the main thing that he's trying to focus on right now is getting the AI to react accordingly, making sure that certain ships can appear in waves, things like that. So it's not necessarily, we don't want to just make it seem like we're just reskinning or replacing, Vanduul's sides with a Mustang or a Constellation or something like that. We're basically trying to make sure that it feels like humans are flying the ships rather than just reskinning Vanduul's sides or just replacing models of the Vanduul sides with spaceships or with like an Aurora or a Constellation. We don't want to do that against actual human pirates.
Okay. I tell you, the better Moon Collider gets at doing the at getting the AI down, the more frustrating it gets for me. So every time you say you want to make it more like human beings, I just think about those constant turning fights you get inside a battle royale. But at least they're fun. I like that it's competitive. All right, that's fine. So you have a programmer there that is...
So we have an AI programmer named Chad who... He does a lot. He helps out, or he basically does a lot of stuff and helps Moon Collider with a lot of AI tasks. And ideally, we'd like the AI to. Let me rephrase that. My idea of a good AI is when it's indistinguishable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, indistinguishable, because you cut off there for a second. Indistinguishable from a human player.
Correct.
And that makes sense to me. But I mean, that means that you could use something like Arena Commander to get used to fighting people that are going to be in the PU at some point.
Right.
Instead of just fighting, ships that are easy to shoot down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Vanduul Swarm today is a lot tougher than when Vanduul Swarm came out, but the people playing it are much better, and they're getting further because they've had time to,
kind of learn how the system reacts.
Right. I like that they learn, or not the ships learn, but the people that are looking at what we do. I hope they're tracking that kind of data on how
we do have an analytics system that records like how long people play the game, what they fired, things like that. So we do have some metrics that we have.
Okay. Now there's a lot of things that are going to be going on in the next year. I mean, this is actually hitting the. For the last year and a half, 2 years that I've been following the game, it's been a lot of this build-up, a lot of telling us what is going to get done, and a lot of showing us the behind the scenes. But now you're getting to the nitty-gritty, so there's not as much news. You look at like this last week. What are the things that you can say right now that are going to be the most intriguing to the backers that are going to be coming out in the next, in your thing, in Arena Commander, over the next 2 months, 3 months, 4 months? We talked about Pirate Swarm. That's one big one.
I guess.
We're separating FPS from this now, right? Because yes. FPS is its own Star Marine.
Correct. So, but that is one aspect of the game, that Star Marine. What's up?
No, keep going. I don't know why I keep losing you. Go on.
Star Marine is something that players are going to be looking forward to. Getting a lot of the ships that we've promised from the stretch goals also into game. So you got the Vanguard that was just went on their concept sale last week, I think.
Yeah.
Or was it this week? So getting a lot of the stretch goals out to what we promised. Getting the ships flyable. Getting multi-crew ships into the game. So letting players sit in another person's, co-pilot seat while they can use the guns. So getting the technology iteratively into the game over time is so that way you can see increased functionality as the game develops. Okay. So like the first step inside your ship, then implementing a social system or a multiplayer mechanic where different HUDs can be looked at. If I wanted to have 3 players in the ship, 4 players in a ship, how would I do that? So we're going to kind of like adding on to each one of those systems iteratively over time, and you're going to see these things happen as we get the technology in. And
okay.
I mean, we've got people who have been already working on this stuff for a while.
Okay. Do you foresee the asteroid hangar that we could land in the multiplayer free flight coming into play at any point in the future?
That's a good question.
That was mentioned, but I don't know if it was mentioned as going into our game or if it was something that the guys in Manchester that were using to test the landing functions.
I wish I had an answer for that one. That one I don't know.
That's fine. That's fine. We get a lot of information, and I know on the inside you're doing everything you can to get your job done. On the outside, we're reading through every bit of information we can, and we throw it at every CIG employee we get to talk to. So don't worry. There's going to be some questions that I throw you occasionally that you might have no answer for. Well, we're going the better part of an hour now, and I think that with the diminishing network connection that Darian and I have, and leaving the door open for another video at some point when he's not the only person there. Well, not the only person, but you're doing a lot of your work and Travis's work there, correct? Yeah, we'll be able to get you back again and talk about things, especially as 2.0 nears, which would be fun.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Darian, thank you so much. Say goodbye to the backers if you want. They're really awesome.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys for making this game happen. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So believe me, the appreciation that I have for you guys is overwhelming.
Yeah, I like to say it's not only Chris and CIG making our dreams come true, but it's also us, the people that are putting our hard-earned money into the game, making your dreams come true. So that's awesome.
You guys weren't there, the game wouldn't be here.
Yeah, and thank you. And with that said, you all be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.